The laughter stopped. From the hallway, William Caldwell froze when he saw the maid kneel beside his son, his special little boy, and gently wipe the crumbs from his cheek. What struck him wasn't the act itself. It was the tenderness. The same tenderness his late wife once had. He wasn't supposed to be there. Not as a millionaire, not as a father, not even as himself. Just a janitor in disguise, a man in worn overalls pretending to fix a broken lamp in his own mansion. Naomi Harris didn't notice him. She was too busy making Liam laugh, holding a tiny cupcake with one hand and a can of soda with the other. "Open wide, buddy," she said with a warm southern accent, her eyes glowing. "You earned this, sunshine." And Liam, his little boy who rarely smiled since his mother's death, burst into uncontrollable giggles. William felt something snap inside him. For months, he'd been hiding behind that janitor uniform, searching for truth, wanting to see who truly cared for his son when they thought no one was watching. But he never expected her. Behind them, Patricia Nolan, the mansion manager, stood at the kitchen door with her arms crossed, her expression sharp as glass. She had just finished scolding Naomi for spoiling the boy. William had heard her words echo earlier that morning. "He's different, Naomi. Don't treat him like he's normal." People will laugh. But now, watching this scene, he realized the truth Patricia would never understand. His son didn't need pity. He needed love. And the woman offering it wasn't rich, powerful, or perfect. She was someone who'd been invisible in this house. Until today. As Liam laughed louder, William felt a lump form in his throat. He wanted to reveal himself, to drop the disguise and tell Naomi who he really was. But something told him to wait. Because in that laughter, there was a story that wasn't finished yet. Sometimes the ones we least expect end up saving us in ways we never imagined. I'm John Parker, and today's story will touch your heart. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give your like. It's very important to me. And please leave in the comments which city or country you're listening from. The next morning, William slipped into the mansion's back hallway, his boots echoing faintly on the polished floors. The scent of lemon polish and fresh linen filled the air. Naomi's laughter drifted from the kitchen, soft, musical, and entirely out of place in a house that usually felt cold as marble. He had spent 2 weeks disguised as Bill the janitor, fixing pipes that weren't broken, pretending not to notice the maids whispering about him. What he was noticing, though, was Naomi. She wasn't like the others. When Patricia barked orders, Naomi didn't flinch. She simply smiled and did her job. When Liam threw a tantrum, Naomi didn't scold. She sang. Today, however, the house carried tension. Patricia's voice snapped from the far end of the corridor. "Naomi, you're wasting time again. That child needs discipline, not affection." William saw Naomi lower her head, holding a tray of oatmeal and fruit for Liam. She turned to him, the janitor, with tired eyes, but still managed to smile. "Morning. Phil, could you please fix the light in Liam's playroom when you have time? He says the shadows scare him." William nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Sure thing, ma'am. I'll take care of it right after breakfast." In the playroom, William watched from the corner as Naomi entered. The boy's face lit up instantly. "Miss Naomi, you came back." She set the tray down, kneeling beside him. "Of course I did, honey. No storm or shadow could keep me away." Liam giggled, wrapping his small arms around her neck. It was a sight William hadn't seen in years. His son laughing freely, trusting someone new. The warmth of the moment was pierced when Patricia entered, heels clicking like a metronome of disapproval. "Naomi, that's enough. You're not his mother. Finish the chores I assigned." Naomi stood up slowly. "With all due respect, Mrs. Nolan, this boy doesn't need more chores done. He needs someone to listen." Patricia's lips curved into a cold smile. "And that, dear, is why you'll never rise above being a maid." The insult hung in the air. Naomi turned away, but William caught the shimmer of a tear she tried to hide. His fists clenched around the mop handle. Every instinct screamed for him to reveal who he was, to defend her. But he couldn't, not yet. He needed to know the full truth about Patricia and the way his household had turned into a place of cruelty. Later, in the small staff lounge, William overheard Grace, Patricia's niece, speaking softly to Naomi. "I don't understand why my aunt dislikes you so much." Naomi shrugged. "People like her think kindness is weakness. But one day, someone will show her she's wrong." That night, William lay awake in the staff quarters, staring at the ceiling fan turning above him. He had all the money in the world, yet his heart was trapped in the same cage as Naomi's, misunderstood and unseen. He made a silent promise to himself. Tomorrow, he would start uncovering the truth behind Patricia's cruelty, and perhaps the truth about Naomi's past, because something in her eyes told him she wasn't just a maid. She was hiding something too. The storm hit Charleston that night, fierce and unexpected. Rain hammered against the tall mansion windows, as lightning revealed fragments of the past William never knew he'd uncover. He had gone to the storage room, searching for tools, or so he pretended, when he found an old file box labeled Staff Records. Inside, among dozens of dull folders, one caught his eye. It was marked Harris Naomi, previous employment. Curiosity got the better of him. He opened it. The file was thin, too thin. Just one sheet of paper, and a termination note from a hospital in Savannah. Dismissed for misconduct involving patient care. His heart pounded. Misconduct? The woman he saw every day radiated nothing but compassion. Something didn't add up. The next morning he watched Naomi in the garden, kneeling beside Liam as they planted sunflowers in the damp soil. They grow tall, Naomi told the boy, her voice soft over the chirping birds. No matter how hard the wind hits them, they reach for the sun. William's chest tightened. Her words carried pain, like she was talking to herself. He had to know the truth. Later, as Bill, he approached her gently. Naomi, I heard you worked at a hospital once. She froze, then forced a small smile. Yeah, a long time ago. But that's a chapter I'd rather forget. Sometimes, he said carefully, what we try to forget is what we're meant to heal. She looked away, her eyes glassy. They said, I failed a patient. But I didn't. I tried to save him. Who was he? My brother, she whispered. He had Down syndrome. Just like Liam. Silence. Only the rustle of wind and the distant call of seagulls. William felt the world tilt. Her kindness, her patience, her love for Liam. It all made sense now. She wasn't just kind. She understood. But Patricia's voice broke the moment. Bill, I need you upstairs. Now. He turned to see her holding a phone, her face twisted with satisfaction. I did a little digging about our sweet Naomi. Guess what I found? William's blood ran cold. Patricia had the same hospital file in her hand. A liar, that's what she is. Fired for negligence. Imagine what our guests would say if they knew who was taking care of your... She stopped, sneering. The Caldwell boy. William's jaw clenched. He wanted to shout, to reveal himself, to end her cruelty. But instead he stared at her cold eyes and said quietly, Sometimes people's mistakes aren't what they seem. Spoken like a true janitor, she scoffed, walking away. That night William sat in the dark staff quarters, the storm long gone but its echo alive in his heart. He realized Naomi wasn't just someone doing her job. She was a woman carrying guilt that wasn't hers to bear. And Patricia? She was preparing something cruel. He could feel it coming, a storm far worse than the one outside. The next few days at the Caldwell mansion carried an eerie calm, one that William could feel but not name. Naomi went about her chores with the same quiet smile, unaware that Patricia Nolan had already decided to destroy her. Patricia's hatred had turned calculated. She needed an excuse, something public, something that would humiliate Naomi in front of everyone. And she found it. It started one morning when Naomi entered the kitchen and noticed Liam's favorite toy missing, his small wooden train that he never went to bed without. She searched everywhere until Grace, Patricia's niece, whispered, I saw Mrs. Nolan take it. She said she'd teach the maid a lesson. Naomi's stomach sank. She didn't understand why Patricia despised her so deeply, but she sensed what was coming. That afternoon, Patricia called the entire staff to the dining hall, a grand room gleaming with chandeliers and pride. Naomi stood by the doorway, holding her cleaning rag, unsure why she'd been summoned. Liam sat quietly at the far end of the table, clutching his juice box. William stood near the wall, mop in hand, pretending to clean while watching closely. Patricia's voice sliced through the silence. Ladies and gentlemen, it seems we have a thief among us. Gasps filled the room. Naomi blinked in confusion. A thief? She asked softly. Don't play innocent, Patricia said, holding up the tiny wooden train between two manicured fingers. Found this in your bag. Care to explain why you stole from the Caldwell family? Naomi's lips trembled. That's impossible. I'd never... Save it, Patricia interrupted. Your kind always has excuses. The staff looked away. Grace tried to speak up, but Patricia shot her a glare that silenced her instantly. William's pulse pounded. He knew Naomi was being framed, but revealing himself now would blow the entire cover. Still, watching her humiliated, seeing the boy's confused face, it was unbearable. Then it happened. Liam stood up. His voice, shaky but loud, echoed through the hall. She didn't steal it. I gave it to her. For helping me sleep when I'm scared. Everyone froze. Patricia's smirk faltered. Naomi turned, tears in her eyes as the boy ran toward her. She's my friend, he shouted. She makes me laugh. The room fell silent except for Liam's trembling voice. And William realized the woman he'd trusted to manage his home was bullying not just Naomi, but his son. Patricia hissed through gritted teeth, trying to recover control. That's enough, boy. You don't know what you're saying. William's jaw clenched. His disguise suddenly felt like armor and prison at once. He wanted to shout who he was, to defend Naomi and his son, to end it all right there. But if he did, Patricia would know everything. And the truth, once out too soon, could ruin the lesson he wanted this house to learn. Naomi knelt, holding Liam close. It's okay, honey. Some people don't understand kindness, but we do, right? The boy nodded, burying his face in her shoulder. William looked at Patricia, whose smile had already returned, thin, venomous, victorious. This wasn't over. That night, as thunder rumbled in the distance once again, William whispered to himself, You've crossed a line, Patricia. And soon, you'll see who you've been talking to. The storm outside wasn't just weather, it was a promise. The air in the mansion had changed. It wasn't just tension anymore, it was fear. The staff whispered behind closed doors. Grace avoided her aunt's sharp eyes, and Naomi moved quietly through the hallways, determined to stay invisible. But William noticed every tremor in her voice, every forced smile. She was breaking, and Patricia knew it. That night, William found Naomi in the kitchen long after midnight. The lights were dim, a single bulb flickering over the sink. She was washing dishes that were already clean, her hands trembling under the water. Naomi, he said softly. She turned startled, then relaxed when she saw Bill. Oh, it's you. Couldn't sleep either? No, he said. Not after what happened. She gave a tired smile, her eyes swollen from crying. It's fine. I'm used to people like her. The world's full of Patricias. You just learn to survive them. William stepped closer, his voice low. You shouldn't have to survive people like her. You deserve peace. Naomi looked at him, really looked at him. There was something in his tone, something that didn't sound like a janitor at all. You talk like someone who's... Not from here, she said cautiously. William's heart skipped. What makes you say that? The way you listen. Most men here don't. Before he could answer, a sound broke through the silence and the creak of a door. Patricia stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her face twisted in suspicion. Well, isn't this cozy, she said, her voice dripping venom. The janitor and the maid having late-night chats while the rest of us sleep. Naomi stepped back. Mrs. Nolan, I was just... Save it. I've seen the way he looks at you. Maybe you're not just cleaning the floors for him. William's fists tightened, rage clawing at his composure. He wanted to tear the mask off and end this humiliation. That's enough, he said firmly. Patricia tilted her head, narrowing her eyes. You're awfully brave for a janitor. Her tone was mocking, but her gaze sharpened. For the first time she studied him, the way he carried himself, the quiet confidence in his stance, the faint authority that no servant could fake. Something flickered behind her eyes. Suspicion. You know, she said slowly, you look familiar. Have we met before? William forced a chuckle. I don't think so, ma'am. I'm just the guy who fixes the lights. Patricia didn't smile. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. No, I've seen those eyes before. Not in this house, though. In a magazine. Or maybe an interview. Naomi frowned, confused. Mrs. Nolan, you're mistaken. Quiet, Patricia snapped. Her eyes were locked on William. Who are you, really? William held her stare. His disguise, his patience, both were slipping. Finally, he said evenly, someone who's very tired of how you treat people. Patricia's smirk vanished. She turned sharply and left the room, but her heels struck the marble floor like gunshots, each one echoing her silent promise. I'll find out who you are." When she was gone, Naomi whispered, "You shouldn't have talked to her like that. She'll make your life miserable." William gave a faint, sad smile. "She already has." That night, Patricia couldn't sleep. She searched online for William Caldwell, and when she saw his photo, her breath caught in her throat. The truth hit her like lightning. The janitor wasn't a janitor. Morning broke over the Caldwell mansion like a lie, bright and calm yet heavy with secrets. The air smelled of salt from the ocean and tension from what Patricia Nolan now knew. She hadn't slept. All night she'd stared at her screen, scrolling through articles about William Caldwell, the reclusive tech magnate who disappeared from public life after his wife's tragic death. The man she thought was a janitor was one of the richest men on the East Coast. By sunrise, Patricia's anger had fermented into something darker, revenge. She knew the game now, and she intended to win it. In the garden, Naomi laughed with Liam as they watered the sunflowers. The boy hummed softly, his joy untouched by the poison swirling inside the house. But from an upstairs window, Patricia watched them with ice in her veins. She called someone on her phone. "Mr. Garrison, the reporter from the Charleston Post," she said smoothly. "I have an exclusive story you'll want. A fallen billionaire hiding in plain sight, living among his servants." Her lips curled as she ended the call. "Let's see how the great William Caldwell handles humiliation." Downstairs, William was in the library, still dressed as Bill, staring at an old photograph on the desk, his late wife smiling with Liam as a baby. He ran a thumb over her face. "You'd love her, Sarah," he whispered. "Naomi, she reminds me of you." The sound of footsteps broke his trance. Marcus Reed appeared at the doorway. His old friend, the private investigator, the only one who knew about his disguise. "You're cutting it close, Will," Marcus said quietly. "She's on to you." "I know," William replied, "but I can't leave yet. Naomi doesn't deserve what's coming." "You hired me to expose Patricia's corruption," Marcus said, "not to fall for the maid." William smiled faintly, but his eyes were tired. "Maybe I didn't know what I was really looking for." Hours later, Patricia made her move. She gathered the entire staff in the grand foyer, Naomi among them holding Liam's hand. Reporters had already started arriving outside, cameras flashing through the glass doors. "What's happening?" Naomi asked softly. "Just stay close to me," William murmured. Patricia stepped forward, her heels echoing like a judge's gavel. "Everyone," she announced dramatically, "we've had a deception in our midst." Gasps rippled through the staff. Naomi's face paled. Patricia gestured toward William with poisonous triumph. "This man, this so-called janitor, is no janitor. He's William Caldwell, the owner of this mansion, who thought it would be amusing to spy on us while pretending to be one of us." The crowd turned to William. Shock, confusion, betrayal. Naomi's hand slipped from Liam's. "Is that true?" she whispered. William's breath caught. He looked at her, the woman who had unknowingly restored his faith in humanity, and saw the hurt in her eyes. He took a step forward. "Yes, it's true." The room erupted in murmurs. Patricia folded her arms, basking in the chaos. "So tell us, Mr. Caldwell," she sneered, "was this your idea of charity? Dressing like a janitor to mock the people who serve you?" William's voice was calm, but his tone cut like glass. "No, I did it to see who I could trust." He looked at Naomi. "And now I know." Naomi blinked, tears forming. "You lied to me," she said quietly. "All this time you watched me like some experiment." "No," William said, stepping closer. "I watched you because you were the only one who saw my son, not my fortune." Patricia scoffed, touching. "Too bad the world won't see it that way." She motioned toward the front doors, where reporters were pressing against the glass. "Smile, Mr. Caldwell. You're about to be front-page news." Liam suddenly ran forward, grabbing his father's hand. "Dad, don't let them be mean to Miss Naomi." The room went still. Patricia's face froze, realization dawning that the boy she'd insulted countless times was his son. The moment stretched like a held breath. William turned to her, eyes dark with controlled fury. "You wanted a story, Patricia?" he said softly. "Here's one about a woman who bullied my child and framed an innocent woman." Gasps, murmurs. Grace stepped forward, trembling but bold. "It's true. I saw her hide the toy. She planned it all." Patricia's face turned ghostly white. Reporters outside could already hear the commotion. William's mask was off, but so was hers, and for the first time she looked terrified. Chaos roared through the mansion like thunder. Outside, cameras flashed against the windows. Inside, silence followed Patricia's humiliation. The house that once smelled of money and order now reeked of fear and guilt. William Caldwell stood in the center of it all, the billionaire no one had recognized, now stripped of disguise and surrounded by those who'd underestimated him. Patricia trembled by the staircase, her flawless composure cracking like old porcelain. "You think you can ruin me?" she hissed. "I've worked for this family for 20 years. And in those years," William said quietly, "you forgot what humanity looked like." He turned to the reporters outside and waved Marcus forward. His old friend entered, holding a thick envelope. "Evidence. In these files," William announced, "you'll find where Patricia Nolan has been funneling charity money meant for my son's foundation into her own accounts." "For years," the reporters gasped. Patricia staggered backward, her face pale as marble. "That's a lie!" she shouted. "You can't prove—" "I already did," Marcus interrupted, showing her own signature on a printed statement. The truth hit harder than any scream could. As the staff watched in shock, Grace stepped forward, her eyes wet with both fear and relief. "Aunt Patricia," she whispered, "you told me kindness made people weak. But Naomi was the strongest person here." Patricia looked around for someone to defend her, for some thread of dignity, but there was none left to hold on to. She turned to Naomi, her voice trembling with venom. "You think you've won? You're just a maid." Naomi's voice was calm, steady. "Maybe, but I know how to love people who don't deserve it." Later, when the reporters were gone and the house finally quiet again, Naomi walked toward the garden. The sun had started to fall behind the oaks, spreading long shadows across the lawn. Liam was there, playing with his toy train again, the one that had started everything. William approached slowly. He had changed back into his suit, the disguise gone, yet somehow he felt smaller now. "Naomi," he said softly, "I owe you an apology." She didn't turn immediately. "You lied to me, Mr. Caldwell." "I did," he admitted, "and it's the thing I regret most." He stepped closer, his voice breaking. "I wanted to see who truly cared for my son. I didn't expect to find someone who'd teach me what love looks like." Naomi finally turned, her eyes glistening. "Love doesn't hide behind masks, William. You can't test kindness like a business deal." He nodded, taking her words like a man finally stripped of all pride. "You're right, but if there's any way to make it right, I'll spend the rest of my life trying." She looked down at Liam, who smiled up at both of them. "Miss Naomi, Daddy's not sad anymore," the boy said. Naomi's heart softened. She crouched beside him, brushing his hair gently. "That's because he has you, sweetheart." For a long moment, silence fell between them, not the kind filled with resentment, but with something fragile and unspoken. Forgiveness was close, but not yet whole. As Naomi turned to leave, William's voice stopped her. "Naomi," he said quietly, "you once told my son that sunflowers grow tall no matter how hard the wind hits them. You were right." She paused, her back to him. "Then don't be the storm anymore," she whispered, and walked away. William watched her disappear into the orange glow of sunset. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of truth, heavy, painful, but freeing. Beside him, Liam held up the little wooden train. "She'll come back, Daddy," he said with certainty. William smiled faintly. "I hope so, son. I really hope so." Weeks passed. The mansion that once echoed with Patricia's orders now felt different, lighter but strangely hollow. Her name was gone from the staff list, her photographs removed from the hall. The house had been cleansed of her cruelty, yet William knew that forgiveness wasn't as easy to sweep away as dust. Naomi had quit the day after the scandal. She didn't take the severance, didn't take the driver William offered. She just left quietly, carrying a small suitcase and Liam's drawing in her hand, a stick-figure family with the words "My friend Naomi" scribbled under it. Every morning since, William sat by his office window, pretending to read reports while his thoughts drifted back to her laughter. He tried to focus on his company again, but nothing about his wealth satisfied him anymore. The mansion, the cars, the stock tickers. Everything felt meaningless compared to that small moment of joy she had brought to his son's life. Liam asked about her every night. "When's Miss Naomi coming back?" William would kneel, stroke his son's hair, and say, Soon, buddy. I hope soon. But she didn't come back. One afternoon, Marcus walked into William's office unannounced, holding a thin folder. I found her, he said. William's heart kicked in his chest. Where? Beaufort, South Carolina. She's volunteering at a community center for children with special needs. Doesn't want attention, just peace. William stared at the address scribbled on the paper. The same woman who'd been accused of neglecting a patient was now helping children who reminded her of her brother and of Liam. She's doing what you never could with your money, Marcus said softly. Healing without expecting anything in return. William nodded, closing the folder. Then that's where I need to go. The next day, his black sedan pulled up in front of a modest brick building painted with murals of smiling children. The scent of ocean air and paint hung in the wind. Through the window, William saw Naomi laughing as she helped a little boy with Down syndrome stack colorful blocks. Her hair was tied back, her hands smudged with paint. She looked at peace, radiant, almost glowing. He hesitated before entering, afraid his presence would disturb that serenity. But then Liam, who had insisted on coming, tugged at his sleeve. Let's go, Dad, she'll be happy to see us. Inside, the children ran around with crayons and music. Naomi turned when she heard Liam's laughter. For a second, her smile froze in shock, then softened into something fragile and uncertain. Liam, she breathed. You're here. The boy ran to her, hugging her waist. I missed you. Naomi knelt, tears welling up as she held him close. I missed you too, sunshine. When she finally looked up, William stood near the doorway holding a small potted sunflower. You left before I could thank you, he said gently. Naomi wiped her eyes. I didn't think you needed to. I didn't know how to, he admitted. He handed her the sunflower. You taught me that love isn't something you buy or test. It's something you earn every single day. Naomi hesitated, then took the plant. You didn't have to come all this way, William. Yes, I did. Because the man I was, the one hiding behind money and fear, he doesn't exist anymore. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sound of children laughing filled the air between them, soft and healing. Naomi's eyes drifted to Liam, who was showing another child how to build a tower of blocks. He's happy again, she said. Because of you, William replied. Naomi looked down, her voice trembling. I didn't save him, William. He saved me. William smiled, realizing the truth in her words. They had all saved each other, just in different ways. Outside, as the sun began to set, Naomi walked them to the car. The sky burned with orange and gold, like forgiveness taking shape. Liam held her hand. Can we see you again? He asked. Naomi looked at William, unsure. Only if it's okay with your dad. William met her gaze. It's more than okay. It's what I've been hoping for. She smiled faintly, brushing her fingers through Liam's hair. Then I'll see you soon. Sunshine. As they drove away, Naomi stood on the sidewalk, holding the sunflower close. Its petals trembled in the wind, but its stem stayed firm, just like she had months past. The air in Charleston turned cooler, and the Caldwell mansion, once haunted by tension, now breathed quietly again. Yet something was still missing, someone was still missing. Naomi's absence had left a gentle void that even time refused to fill. William had changed. The disguise, the walls, the distance, gone. In their place stood a man who smiled more, listened longer, and learned to live without the armor of wealth. He spent mornings walking with Liam through the garden, where the sunflowers Naomi planted grew taller each day. Sometimes Liam would stop, point to one and say, This one's Naomi, she's the tallest. William would laugh softly, touched and haunted all at once. One evening, as the sky melted into lavender, Marcus visited again. He found William in his late wife's old study, surrounded by unopened boxes from years ago. You're still here? Marcus asked. Just sorting memories, William replied, holding an old journal. Sarah kept these before she passed. He flipped through the pages, expecting grief. Instead, he found Naomi's name. The entry was dated nearly 9 years earlier. A young nurse named Naomi Harris took care of me during my last treatment. Kind, gentle, patient beyond words. She said her brother had Down syndrome, and that she understands what love costs. I told her to never stop being who she is. The world needs her heart. William froze. His wife had known Naomi, not by fate, but by grace. He whispered, almost to himself, Sarah, you sent her to us. Marcus leaned over the desk, reading the words himself. Looks like your wife saw something in her long before you did." William closed the journal slowly, a tear tracing down his cheek. "Naomi didn't just save my son. She was the last piece of Sarah's kindness, coming back to finish what she started." That weekend, William and Liam returned to the community center in Beaufort without warning. Naomi was teaching a small group of children how to paint when she looked up and saw them at the door. Liam ran straight to her, his laughter filling the room like sunlight. "Naomi, look, I made a sunflower." He held up a bright yellow painting, messy but full of joy. Naomi knelt, her smile trembling with emotion. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." William waited until the other children left. He handed Naomi the journal, open to Sarah's entry. "She wrote about you," he said softly. Naomi blinked in disbelief, reading the words slowly, her hand over her mouth. She remembered me. "You were her favorite nurse," William said, "and you became my son's favorite person. Maybe that's not coincidence." Naomi's eyes shimmered. "No," she whispered, "that's grace." They stood in silence for a long moment, surrounded by the scent of paint and the sound of waves outside. "William," she said finally, "I forgave you a long time ago. I just didn't know if you'd forgive yourself." He smiled, a quiet, broken smile that carried peace for the first time. "I have now, because you reminded me what love really is." That night, as the sun set over the harbor, Naomi walked with William and Liam along the boardwalk. The boy ran ahead, laughing in the golden light, the sea breeze ruffling his hair. William turned to Naomi. "Sarah used to say that love doesn't end when someone leaves, it just finds a new home." Naomi smiled faintly. "Then maybe that's what we've all been doing, finding a new home." They watched Liam chase seagulls along the pier, his laughter echoing like a hymn. The world felt right again, not perfect but healed, and for the first time William Caldwell didn't feel like a man who'd lost everything. He felt like a man who'd finally been found. A full year later, the Caldwell mansion stood transformed. The air that once carried tension now rang with laughter. The walls that had witnessed deceit now held paintings made by small hands, Liam's hands, and the hands of children from Naomi's community center. What had begun as an act of disguise ended as an act of redemption. William Caldwell was no longer the hidden millionaire behind a mop. He was a man who had learned that love doesn't need wealth to speak loudly, it just needs truth. Naomi had moved into a small cottage near the mansion, close enough for Liam to visit every day. The three of them had created a rhythm that felt more like family than any title could define. Mornings began with pancakes and piano songs. Afternoons were for sunflowers and paint. Evenings were for stories, real ones, not fairy tales, but the kind born from pain and rebuilt through forgiveness. One crisp autumn afternoon, Naomi and William stood in the garden where it all began. The sunflowers swayed gently in the breeze, their golden faces reaching toward the light. Liam was on the grass nearby, helping another little boy with Down syndrome, one of the children from Naomi's program, to stack wooden blocks. William watched him with quiet pride. "He's braver than I ever was," he said softly. Naomi smiled. "He's free. You set him free the day you stopped hiding." He turned to her. "You taught me how." Their eyes met, filled with the kind of understanding that doesn't need words. Naomi knelt to touch the earth, brushing the petals of one of the oldest sunflowers. "Do you remember when I told Liam that these flowers stand tall no matter how hard the wind hits them?" "I do," William said. "Well," she whispered, "we've both been through storms. But we're still standing." William reached for her hand, holding it gently. The gesture said what his words could not, that he loved her not because she'd saved his son, but because she had saved them both. That evening, as dusk settled over Charleston, the three of them sat on the porch steps together. Liam rested his head on Naomi's shoulder, his eyes heavy with sleep. The world around them felt still, peaceful. "You know," William said quietly, "Sarah always believed people meet for reasons they can't see at first." Naomi smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Liam's forehead. "Then maybe that's what we are, reasons that finally make sense." A hush fell over the garden, broken only by the soft whisper of the sea breeze. The last light of the day glowed through the sunflowers, painting them in gold, and for the first time, William Caldwell understood. The richest man isn't the one with the grandest house, but the one who finally learns where love lives. He looked at Naomi and smiled. "Welcome home," Naomi didn't reply. She didn't have to. Her eyes said it all. This story reminds us that sometimes the most powerful disguises we wear aren't on the outside. They're the walls we build around our hearts. But love has a way of breaking through. I'm John Parker, and this was Invisible Hearts. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give your like. It means the world to me. And tell us in the comments, from what city or country are you listening today? Remember, no act of kindness is ever invisible.